Welcome to the War for Men podcast. Be your host today, Chris, along with Jake. And today we are very, very fortunate to have the great Rob Muldoon with us, who has been in the construction industry. I'll let him, speak his own words, but, over 25 years?
25 years, yeah, worked in construction, yeah.
And he is a major mental health advocate over in the UK. Really, he's living our dream. Rob is doing exactly what we want to be doing over here in the States. And so we're so excited to learn from him. And Rob, again, appreciate you having you on. I want to start by getting a little bit of your background in construction so people know where you come from.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for the great introduction and thanks for having us on. But I've worked in construction now for 25 years. Over that time, I did a bricklaying apprenticeship or masonry apprenticeship. I worked for a big contractor in the northwest of England, in Manchester. But I say I worked in Manchester, I ended up working all over the country. And I worked for that business for 21 of the 25 years I've worked in this industry. Finished my apprenticeship, became a bricklayer for a few years, worked on things from football stadiums to big housing developments to universities, hospitals, schools, prisons, all bigger contracts like that. And I progressed my career working for them. I became a supervisor on site. I then became a manager. Progressed again and became a project manager. Before I know it, I was running these massive projects, and I did that for best part of 10 years as well, running big projects. Part of big teams, running all the projects that up and down the country. And as well, when I was doing that, this is how wild I used to be years ago, and we'll go into more detail later on, but I used to be running these big projects and have a good salary off the company I was working for, but I'd have 16, 17 people working for me, going doing smaller domestic stuff on people's houses and things like that. So I was trying to balance everything all at once. So it's been a hectic 25 years, and it's gone really quick.
Nice. No, yeah, it's when you and I spoke before, yeah, we have very similar background. I think since then I'm started my own company, and I'm in the thick of it, trying to do the big stuff and manage little small service stuff, so I can feel your pain there a little bit. So now that we're caught up to speed a little bit, want to just talk about dealing with that, right? Dealing with the stress of that and the stress of work before your kind of life pivoted to mental health advocacy, right? To where it was really something that you owned and really had a lot of focus on. How was trying to handle all that before your work now?
For a long time, I thought I was handling it, but I really wasn't. And that's probably because I can look back at that time now and realise mistakes I was making and things that I was doing. But I've found out an analogy. Well, it wasn't an analogy. It was a experiment that Isaac Newton did. So it's called the boiling frog experiment. Have you ever heard of this?
I don't think so.
So I'm pretty sure it was Isaac Newton. People have to Google it and check it. But Isaac Newton got a pan of boiling water and he put a frog in it. And the frog jumped straight out because it was boiling. It was hot and he didn't want to be in there. But he got the same frog and he got the same pan, but the water was cold in it. And he put the pan on the hob and slowly turned the water up. And before the frog knew it, it boiled itself to death because it didn't realise the environment that it was in was doing such damage to it. And that's pretty much sums up my career for a long time. And it wasn't because of the contractor that I was working for. They were great and they looked after me and supported me. But it was to do with the industry as a whole, really, and my attitude towards looking after myself and the fact that, as we all do, we all work in these macho, manly orientated environments, and if you wanted to turn around to one of your friends at work and turn around to them and say, you know what, I'm not feeling it today, other than a reason of because you've drank too much or you've been doing up to too much, that instead of, I felt like I couldn't turn around to them and go, I'm not feeling it today because, like, I don't feel like I've got the capacity to do it, or I feel like I've got these thoughts and these feelings that I can't control and I don't know how to deal with it. I would, at that time, Chris, I had no problem coming into him saying, you know what, I went out last night watching the football and I drank a bit too much and I've had dodgy food on the way home and I shit myself in the van in the way to work. No problem telling them that. But I couldn't turn around to those same guys that I worked with for 20 plus years that I used to see more than my own family and spend more time with them than my own family. I couldn't turn around to them and say, you know what, I'm not feeling it today, boys, because I've got this going on, or I've got this going on, I've got this anxious feeling inside, I've got a feeling inside me that I don't understand, and I don't know why it's making me feel like this. Because I felt like I had to be a certain way, and I had to be like that, and I was like that for a long, long time. And a lot of the time, I didn't realize that was happening in my life, because I was just pushing it down, ignoring it, and getting on with my job, cracking on with it.
Yeah, and that's what we all do, right? I mean, that's I've been in this industry quite a long time as well, and that's unfortunately everybody's experience, right? What was
Yeah,
the
yeah,
and so there had to be a moment, right? There had to be a moment. I'm
yes.
assuming that really that enough's enough. Something's got to change. What was the we'll call it the breaking point?
Well, the breaking point for me was, it was a weekend away. We went away for a long weekend, and I'd just come off the back of doing two really, really difficult projects. They were only small little projects, but we had done them, and every single day felt like war out on site. It was just arguments and attitudes, bad planning from the people who we were doing the jobs for, and it was just hard, hard work out on site, on top of the normal level of hard work that you have to do doing the physical job. But I'd been told, my partner at the time was like, Rob, book the time off. Rob, it's a Friday, it's a Monday, it's a Tuesday. You'd be back in work on the Wednesday. And I'd come off the back of doing those two hard projects, and I was doing this one in Liverpool, and it was a good project, and it was going well. The client were good to work for. The team that we had on site were really good, and I think I might. Well, I did. I let my guard down a little bit and took my foot off the accelerator. But I knew I had this weekend to go away, this long weekend. But I just never ever took the time off. I never booked any holidays off, and a lot of that came from, Chris, the way that I used to view myself and the way I used to think about myself, because, like, imposter syndrome was absolutely crippling me at that time, and I'd never heard of imposter syndrome at that time. I didn't know what it was, and I had no self worth, no self love. Never thought I was good enough. Felt like I was a failure all the time, and all these things were compounding themselves all the time. And I used to never take time off because I thought, if I take time off, they're going to send people in to cover me while I'm off. Holiday cover's going to come in. And then when they come in, they're going to go out onto the site. So they're going to see everything that we've been doing out on site, and they'll see that I've done something wrong out there because I'm not good enough at my job, and I've definitely made a mistake out there because I'm definitely not the person that's meant to be running this project, and I haven't got the skills to do this, and I haven't got the knowledge, and I haven't got the experience to run these big projects. I'm not meant to be the one that does this. So when they go out and they find everything that I've done wrong out on site, and they make these big lists that I thought they find out on site, because that's what my mind or my thought process was telling me.
Mm,
They'd obviously ring the office and they'll speak to the line manager and let them know that Rob's done this wrong and the site's not like this, and this is going wrong and that's going wrong. And if they find all that stuff that I've done wrong, and then they do say all that, well, that definitely means they're going to get rid of me. And if they do get rid of me, that definitely means I'm not good enough to do my job. And if I'm not good enough to do my job, and how to go out and get another job somewhere else, because I clearly don't have the skills to do it. And if I don't have the skills to do that, and I haven't got the knowledge to do it, and I can't go out and get another job, but how do I pay for my family? How do I keep a roof over my kid's head? How do I put food on the table? How do I pay for school shoes and everything else that goes along with it? You know what? It's easy just to not go on holiday. And I can look back at that time now and realise how ridiculous that sounds. But at that time in my life, that's what was controlling my thought processes and my thought patterns. And they were telling me all this, and they were telling me not to book that time off. But the Thursday night came, and we were due to go away on the Friday. And I came home from work late, as always. And I just got that look of death that we all love when we're in trouble, when we've done something wrong. And she just turned around to me and said, "You've not booked this time off, have you, Rob?" And I was like, "No, I haven't, no." So after a polite conversation, which involved me getting my ears chewed off, she said, "Well, what are we going to do?" I said, "Well, I'm only working in Liverpool, and we're going away to North Wales, which is really close. And it's on the way to, pretty much on the way to Wales from Manchester." I said, "I'll go into work. Site shuts at 3:30. And most of the lads will be gone for 12, 1 o'clock. They earn their own money, and they'll get themselves gone by that point. So I'll come over when everybody's gone, and then I'll come over and meet you where we're going away with the kids. And Monday morning, I'll have to get up early, go into work, and I'll see you Tuesday night when you get home, and we'll just have to do it like that." Now, she wasn't happy with me. She absolutely wasn't happy with me, but she knew there was no change in my mind, because that's what I was always like. I was always prioritizing other things when I should have been prioritizing my own needs. And I went into work on the Friday. It was a normal day out at work, nothing out of the ordinary. Site did shut at 3:30. Most of the lads had gone for 12, 1 o'clock. They'd had a good week, got the money in, earned the money, got themselves set up for the following week and gone. I was still sat in my office at 5:30 that evening, exhausted from a week of putting that mask on, that fake persona, pretending everything's A-okay in my world. And I don't get any of that. I don't get any of that stuff. That stuff doesn't bother me. I'm all right. I can keep going. And I was actually sat there getting more and more angry, thinking I've got too much to do. I've got quality reports to do. I've got handovers to do. I've got scaffolding to arrange. I've got 2 loads of block coming into a city centre job. And the haul road's only a little bit wider than the wagons that I've got to get down there. And because it is so narrow, I can't lay all my pallets down on the floor in one go. And I can only offload them one at a time. And then I've got to pull them across the concrete. And then I've got to get the forklift to pick them up and move them. And I ain't got time to go away. I've got too much to do. But I eventually got myself motivated to get up and get over there. And on the Saturday, we were out, and everybody was up and out early. They wanted to go for a walk around North Wales. And all I wanted to do was lie in bed, hide away from the world. I was exhausted. I was worn out. I was burnt out. And I got up and I went out for this walk with everybody. And Seb, my eldest lad, who was only 3 at this point, as soon as we got out and we were walking, he was like, "Dad, at lunchtime, can I have pizza at lunch?" I was like, "Yeah, of course you can if you want pizza." 10 minutes later, "Dad, is it lunchtime yet?" 10 minutes later, "Dad, can we go and get pizza yet?" "Dad, do you know anywhere that sells pizza?" "Dad, have you found somewhere that does pizza?" "Dad, I'm really hungry. Dad, I want to go get pizza." "Dad, can we go and get pizza?" All morning, just on at me and on at me and on at me. I don't know what he'd seen on TV or anywhere that morning, but he was desperate for pizza. So lunchtime came around and we found a place that sold pizza, a restaurant that sold pizza. And we were sat down and we ordered all the food, and his pizza turned up. And when his pizza turned up, I cut it up into smaller bits for him so it's easy for him to eat. And when I handed it to him, do you want to guess what he said to me?
Didn't want it.
Yeah, exactly that. "I don't want that pizza, Dad."
Yeah, I have kids, I know.
That was the beginning of the end for me. And I picked that plate of food up and I threw it across the restaurant. And I was screaming and shouting and swearing at him. And his mum was telling me to calm down. And my brother-in-law was telling me to calm down. And everybody in that restaurant was just looking at me. And I just screamed and shouted and back at him saying, I'm not the one with the problem. He's the one with the problem. He's been asking me for that pizza all day. I give it him and he doesn't want it. When in reality, he wasn't the one that had the problem. I was the one that had the problem. Because all those years of anger, frustration, and emotion, ignoring it, manning up, and all the wonderful things that we tell ourselves, all started to come out just because a 3-year-old wouldn't eat the lunch you've been asking me for all day. And I used to be able to deal and run teams of the most awkward, horrible bricklayers you can imagine, that are screaming, shouting, demanding all sorts of wonderful stuff off me every single day. And it never, ever used to bother me. It was like water off a duck's back. I used to take all my anger and all my frustrations out on the ones who love me the most, because sometimes we can be guilty of that. And I used to be very, very guilty of it for a long, long time. But after I finished making an absolute idiot of myself in that restaurant, I got up, I walked out, I left everybody there. Everybody in that restaurant, all the other guests that were in that restaurant were all just gobsmacked that somebody had reacted the way that they reacted. And I went back to where we were staying. I went straight up into the bedroom and I hid in the bedroom for the rest of that weekend. My mind was broken at that point. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't stand up, I couldn't sit down. I didn't know what to do with myself. I couldn't control it. I was having a panic attack at that time, but I didn't know it was a panic attack because I didn't know anything about this stuff. And when you think about it, at the end of the day, your mind's still a muscle. It's a complex muscle, but it is still a muscle. Now, it used to look like two fit, athletic guys. And you go to the gym, 3-4 times a week, every single week, never miss a session, yeah?
Oh, he does. I just put shoulder pads in.
I miss plenty of sessions.
But imagine when you go into the gym and you only ever do one workout, you only ever do bicep curls. And you're just doing it over and over and over and over and over and over for years and years and years on end. And you never give those muscles time off. You never give them time to just stop, chill, relax, recover. You'd probably end up with injury with them, wouldn't you?
Oh, absolutely.
And that's exactly what I'd done to my mind at that point. It's still a muscle at the end of the day, a complex muscle, but it is still a muscle.
It's definitely hard, though, to take that moment and realize that you do need a mental break.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Because we're so wrapped up in our own worlds that we've got to provide for people, we've got to get the job finished, and we've got to keep up appearances to everybody to make that, don't want anybody else to know that we're struggling at this time. And ego can lead a lot of this as well. My ego was, I don't feel like I'm an egotistical person, but my ego was driving me at that point, definitely driving me at that point.
How old were you when that was going on, when you said that your ego was driving you?
I was early 30s. So I would have been 32, something like that.
I think I was like 20s when I really had that issue of ego, because I was just getting out of the army with like a combat infantry, MYH and everything, and super driven by my ego. And it definitely did a lot of damage to the people around me, the relationships I had. It was hard. And it took a long time before I actually admitted that I had the problem, not everyone else.
Yeah, definitely. And I think with you coming from that background where it is such a, well, they break you to think like that, don't they? They train you to think like that because you need those skills to survive in the surroundings and the work surroundings that you're going to go into. But then you've got to try and bring yourself down to civilian life, which, although you need some of those skills, it's how you deliver those skills, isn't it? And it's difficult to switch off when it's been your life for so long.
Yeah, there's my entire entry into adulthood. Like my first gunfight was 19 years old, so, and I was so high off of the ego thing, like just lifted up with the whole "you're invincible, no one can touch you."
Yeah, this is it. And then you have things that hit you in life, and you think, oh, that doesn't bother me because I've had this. Because at 19 years old, I was in a gunfight, and this has happened to me, and I had to survive that and come through that.
Yeah.
So this thing that's stressing me out and making me feel anxious inside, or giving me these thoughts and these feelings, that's nothing to what I've had. so I know I can deal with that. But that's a totally and utterly different scenario.
Yep.
And you can transfer the skills sometimes, but it's understanding how to balance that transfer of skills and look at it a slightly different way.
Yeah, and it's funny talking about ego the way you just did a minute ago, where it's because that's more the stereotypical what you think and having an ego is. Because I right when you said that too, like I don't think of myself as an egotistical person, but now, like in real time as we're talking, I just find myself, oh yeah, I'm trying to handle way more than I should be because in my mind I should be able to handle this. I should be able to do
Is
handle my business and my family and this and more and say yes to everybody. I should be able to handle that. And that's as in real time, I'm realizing that's an ego thing. Even though I'm not thinking I can
yeah,
handle these things because I'm the best, it's just because I think I should be able to do these things for one reason
yeah,
or another.
yeah, absolutely. And it it's like when you think of somebody who's got a big ego, you think of somebody who's showing off all the time and look at me and I'm this
Yeah.
and I'm that, and that is a part of it. But it looks different for everybody. And when you know you've got to stop and take a step back and ask for a bit of help and ask for a bit of support and realize when you've done things wrong and realize your actions are upsetting people, your ego takes a bit of a bruising, doesn't it? Because you feel a certain way about it, and it can manifest itself in, or it certainly did with me, in failure, or what I felt like I was failing all the time. It wasn't. It was my ego that was bruised, and I wasn't failing because I can look back at my career now and realize I was achieving things and I was doing things. And if you look back at your own careers, you can see the progression that you've done. Because I think a lot of people can get stuck in one looking at other people's lives, but having dreams and having expectations, but not understanding the reality of what those dreams are costing you. And absolutely, like I speak to a lot of business owners now that they say that they want to have the Lamborghini and the big house and everything like that. Absolutely, if you want that, absolutely go for it. But understand the cost it's going to have to get to that point. And if you wanna have that, there's got to be sacrifices in your life. That like my old boss, who I worked for, an amazing guy from Northern Ireland, came over to England, set up his company in 1997, I think. And now they're a huge masonry contractor, not only in the Northwest, but in the whole of the UK. And he set that up. And I bet there's times now he looks back at where he's missed out on so much of his life because he's missed out on stuff with his kids and he's missed out on stuff with his family. And he's not had the been able to do things and he's not been able to get that time back. But if you look and he's not a flash guy at all, but he has got a nice house and he has got a nice car and he has got nice offices and he has got loads of equipment with all his name printed all over it and it's up and down the country and it looks amazing. He's worked so hard to achieve that and he knows and he understands that he's sacrificed things in his life to get to that point. And people don't always understand that sometimes, I think. And on the flip side as well, when I go out and do these talks on these construction sites, people that we go and deliver the talks to will moan about directors and owners of businesses and like, yeah, but it's all right for them. They're turning up in the Range Rover or they're turning up in the Flash Porsche or whatever car it is that they turn up in. I'm like, yeah, no, but do you understand that individual, if they didn't do their job, you wouldn't be working? I'm like, yeah, no, but it's easy for them. I'm like, no, it's not. They've got a responsibility because the last time I was down in Southampton, right at the bottom of England, and this individual was talking to me on this housing site, and he's like, I think there was 350 houses being built on this plot of land, and he was like, yeah, but it's all right for him. I was like, how many people work on this site? And he was like, I don't know, about 500. Right, he's got 500 rent payments or 500 mortgages that he's got to pay every single week or every single month. And if he doesn't do his job and he doesn't make sure that everything's in line and working and stuff like that, you don't get paid. and you don't earn that money, and you can't make your bills. So yes, he's got the nice car, and yes, he's turning up in nice clean clothes and everything like that, but he's got the same worries as you, or she's got the same worries as you. It just looks slightly different. It's all relevant to everybody else's life. And I think people can get lost in, I've got to achieve a certain thing and look a certain way and be a certain way and conduct myself a certain way. But also, you've got to realise that it can have a detrimental effect on you or others around you as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. I know. I'm definitely learning that right now. I think I just told you in the beginning that yeah, I went from being in a, I'm not going to say comfortable, but I was in a superintendent role for this large mechanical contractor, and then now I'm working for myself. And there's no office in the background doing all the things to make it so I can do my job easy. I'm everything, right? I'm the field guy, the superintendent, the office, and everything. And it's a lot. And I'm experiencing everything you're talking about with sacrificing the time with the family and really, and then kind of going back to what you were, your story. I've noticed myself having those avalanche of thoughts and emotions that you were talking about, where one thing leads to another and another and another. If I don't do this, this doesn't happen, and this doesn't happen. And I have a business partner as well who I'm really thankful for. But yeah, then we have employees, and I I'm not responsible just for putting food on my table. Responsible for putting food over here. So if I don't land this job, then it's not just my family that suffers. So it's this avalanche that we were talking about. Um, and that's what came to my mind when you were talking about your story, where you had all these avalanches of emotions that suddenly, turned into you yelling at your 3-year-old in public, right? And so, take me back to that, to where you were in that, when you're at your hotel room and you're hiding away from the family and from everybody, and you're broken, right? Was there was it a pretty quick, okay, this is my breaking point, things need to change, or did that stay like that for a while? I'm just wondering timeline, how long it took to finally, after your breaking point, where you went from there.
Well, I stayed in that room all weekend. My wife at the time was trying to check in on me and trying to look after me, and I didn't want to know it. I just shut the door away from everybody, and I wasn't sleeping. I did eventually calm down, but I didn't sleep Saturday night. Sunday, I didn't leave the room. Sunday night, I didn't sleep. And then Monday morning rolled round, and 4:30 in the morning, my alarm went off. I hadn't slept a wink since Friday night, and even Friday night sleep, because I was wound up with everything. I didn't properly sleep because my sleep was really suffering at that point. My alarm went off at 4:30. I got myself up. I got myself dressed. I went downstairs. I made a coffee, and I got my work pickup that I come home on the Friday. And where do you think I drove to?
Back to work.
Back to work. Exactly. And again, it was that weight of responsibility that I thought, if I don't turn up to work, there was 33 bricklayers, 2 forklift drivers, 10 scaffolders, people that were doing the mastic and the fire stopping, labourers that were there, and just everybody else that was involved out on that project where we were working. If their manager doesn't turn up, well, it means that they can't go out onto site and they can't do their job because there's nobody there. Well, if they can't go out onto site and they can't do the job, well, it means that they can't earn the money. If they can't earn the money, that means that they can't provide for the family. If they can't provide for the family, they can't pay the bills, and it's all my fault. And these are all the thought processes, or my thought patterns of the way I used to think about things. The thing is, I could have rang in work sick. I could have had the time off. I could have had holiday. It wouldn't have been a problem at all. But I was choosing to put everybody else's needs in front of my own, because I was struggling to say that, you know what, something's going on in my life here and I don't understand it. I think I need a bit of help, because it was ingrained in me not to. because the stigma that surrounds mental health and well-being in the construction industry, and as we're having this conversation, however many thousands of miles apart, it's proving that the stigma is exactly the same on your side of the world. That it's the stigma had taught me not to ask for this help and not to do anything and to keep my mouth shut and just to keep going, because that's what we do, because we're all rough, tough construction workers and we don't get any of that shit, because we're all right, and we've never had emotional problems, and we've never had money issues, and we've never had addiction problems, and we've never had stuff. The biggest thing for me, which I later came to find out in therapy, was stuff that happened to me in my childhood, and I brought it into my adult life, not understanding it, and it was all this sort of stuff. But construction workers, if you ask any construction worker, whether it's in the US or whether it's in the UK, they'll all turn around to you and they'll all say, yeah, I'm all right. Or as we say over here, we're sound, we're good. Living the dream was my favourite one.
Yep.
And in reality, it really wasn't. I was struggling with stuff and I didn't know how to handle it. But I drove into work that Monday morning having all these thoughts and thinking that I've got to turn up. And there's a tunnel that you can go through called the Mersey Tunnels, and it goes underneath the River Mersey. And depending on where you need to go in Liverpool, you sometimes have to go through it. They've actually built a new bridge now called the Runcorn Bridge, and they've got it so it's a toll that you have to pay, but you don't pay a toll booth. It's a camera, and you've got to go online, and you've got to remember to pay it, and everybody forgets to pay it, and that's how they get extra money out of you, but that's another story. But I went through the tunnels that morning, and the kid's mum rang me, and I answered the phone, and I barked at her. I was like, "What do you want? Hurry up! I'm going to lose my signal in a minute because I'm going in through the tunnels." And she went, "Rob, I cannot be with you anymore. You are destroying yourself. You just had this massive breakdown. You spoke to everybody the way that you spoke to them. You've acted the way that you've acted. You've done what you've done, and you've gone off to work, Rob. I think you need to come around and sort this out. You need to come back and get this sorted." Guess what I did?
Kept going to work.
Kept going to work. I went, "No, I'll speak to you later," and just hung up the phone. And I went to work, turned up to work in the morning. 6 o'clock in the morning, I got to the construction site, and those two big lorries were waiting for me outside with a block on the back of it, concrete block. And I pulled in the car park, and one of the forklift drivers and a labourer had come in an hour early. And I hadn't asked them to come in an hour early, but they could see I was struggling. The signs were there, and they thought the best way to help Rob out was to come and sort this delivery out. And I was really grateful for him to coming in and doing that. And we got the delivery sorted. And we were sat in the canteen having a coffee. And the forklift driver turned around to me and went, "How was your weekend away, Rob?" And I sat there and I thought about it for a minute. I was like, "It was all right, I had a really good time." My life was falling apart. My life was falling apart, and I still couldn't talk about this stuff. And like that morning, I didn't need them two to fix me or give me any words of wisdom or wave a magic wand over me and make all my problems go away. But it would have been nice to know I could have spoke to them about it. And I absolutely could have spoke to them about it. But stigma that we just spoke about had taught me to never, ever, ever talk about this stuff. And that Monday morning, I got everything sorted, made sure everybody was okay, everybody was safe, everybody was earning money. Once everybody was doing all that and nobody needed anything from me, I went out to the car park and I dropped the tailgate on the pickup, and I had a cab, a canopy on the pickup. Yeah. And I crawled in the tub of that pickup and I just broke down. That was my absolute breaking point there. And again, like I was saying before, I was fortunate. I worked for a really, really, really good company. And I rang Paul, the owner, up, and I spoke to him and I told him what had gone on. And he said to me, "Right, let's get you some help." And he got me some support. And I had some time off and I did some talking therapy. And when you start talking about things that you conditioned yourself for years and years and years never to talk about, never let anybody know you're struggling, never show that kink in your arm or that something's not quite right, it's really, really, really hard. But if you do lean into the help and support, and you do let go of the vice grip of the information that you have inside you, And for me, I didn't know I had this vice grip at that time. The support I received helped me let go of that vice grip, and it allowed me to get better, and it allowed me to come back to work, and it allowed me to be one of the boys again out on site. And again, I could have gone back to any one of the projects that we had running, but I chose to go back to that one in Liverpool because, again, ego was leading me, but my ego was bruised. And I got everybody together outside the welfare, and I was like, look, this is what's happened to me. My head fell off. I chose to look at it on the floor, and I chose to ignore it and pretend everything was all right. And I went on to explain a bit more what had gone on. But over that coming week, a lot of them started coming up to me, about 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of it, however many it was, coming up to me, and they were chatting to me, and they were like, you know what, kid? I know exactly how you feel. They've had this go in their life, they've had that go in their life, they've had relationship breakdown, they've lost. One of them told me he'd lost his house to gambling. He'd not seen his children for 12 years, whatever it was. All their story was different to mine. But what it made me realise was I wasn't alone. I was not the only one having these thoughts and feelings. And I can guarantee, right, and we're us three here are living proof of this. Doesn't matter how long you've worked in this industry, where you are in the world, no matter how tough and how stone-faced you are, every single person at some point in their career in this industry has had a thought or a feeling of, how do I handle this? How am I going to pay that bill? What am I going to do with this? How do I deal with this situation? Why does this keep happening to me? My partner's got this going on at home, or I've got a lump on the side of me and I've been to the doctors and they said it's this, and what does that look like for my family? And how do I deal with that? And why do my children still keep having it? Whatever it might be. We're all on a journey through life, and life throws us difficult things sometimes. And we can absolutely come together and help and support each other with it and get ourselves through that time, and we can absolutely 100% talk about it. And we're not there to fix each other, but we can try and maybe lighten the load a little bit and share a bit of knowledge and a bit of understanding and a bit of experience about things that are going on. And I like I say to a lot of people when I do these talks, I'm like, just because I had all that stuff going on in my life doesn't mean I can't go out and lay the bricks like I used to. It's not stopping me doing that because I'm dealing with it. It's not stopping me going out and running projects like I used to. It just means I've got shit going on in my life right now and I'm choosing to deal with it instead of burying my head in that sand and pretend everything's A-okay and I don't get any of that shit. Because we all get it. It's just how we handle it and how we deal with it is the important bit.
So when you finally opened up to your leadership saying that you needed help, did you ever feel judged at any point by them?
No, but I was fortunate to work for a good company. But I know that there is people out there that have lost their jobs because of it. That's why the work that we do is we're so busy with it, because I think the construction industry is coming to a point now where they're learning to say, look, one, we've got over 500,000 people that are a skill shortage in this country. Nobody wants to come into construction. The younger people want to do um, office-based jobs or YouTube or stuff like that. They don't want to come into this industry because, as you both know, it's hard, heavy work in cold, wet, damp conditions, especially in the UK. Pisses it down all the time over here. It's literally not stopped raining all day today. And when you're out and working in it for most of the year, it gets to you and it's difficult. So people don't want to come into the industry, and the industry as a whole is realizing, look, we're losing a lot of people because they don't want to do it. We're not encouraging, or there's not a stream of new people coming into this industry. We need to start doing things a bit differently now. And there definitely was a time where people were judged by it, and they would lose the job over it, and they would be thought of less if they've spoke about it. And again, that's all part of the different layers of stigma that goes around. But I think it's definitely changing, where people's opinion are like, okay, so maybe we're not causing this, and maybe it's not a work-related incident, but we need to understand why our employee is feeling like this, and let's get them that bit of help and support. Because if we do just get rid of them, we've got to then recruit And then when we do finally get somebody who comes along, they might be no good. So then you have to get rid of them again and the whole process starts again. And when you do finally find someone that is okay, they've now got to learn how you work as a business, because like our job is the same, obviously, but it's different because you've worked for one company and they did it that way. Well, we do it this way now, and they've got to learn all that. And then there's all the admin side of it, and then setting taxes and pensions and everything else up that they have to do over here. I think a lot of companies are like, right, let's try and support the staff that we've got. But even with all the good stuff that they're doing over here, there is still a massive element of people, one, are scared to talk about it because of exactly what you said about being judged, and two, that they don't want it to be seen as a sign of weakness.
Yeah, and that's it is, and that's it still goes on, and because I've known several people who were fantastic workers, fantastic, in my industry, plumbing, great hands, but they couldn't get out of their own way, and they ultimately made a pitfall for themselves. And whether it was work
Yeah,
related, like you said, they there's no help, there's no support. But I think
yeah,
there's starting to be there's an opening right now, and that's where we're trying to fill over here. Is there seems to be an opening for people that are understanding why it's important and the need for it. As one thing, when I'm now as a business owner, I get to go to a little bit more of these meetings and these sit downs with other business owners, and I get to throw out how much money and effort they're putting into safety. Like, this
yeah,
needs to be in part of that conversation, because I'll tell you what, if someone's not doing good mentally, they don't the last thing they care about is your safety program, right?
yeah,
And they got
exactly.
so
Like at that period of my life, I was in charge of big teams of people, and I was putting them to work, and I could have ultimately put them to work in a bad way, and they could have lost their life because of my decision making, because I wasn't thinking clearly. Now, thankfully, that never happened. We never had any accidents, but I know examples of an accident that happened on one of the projects I was working on, and it was a wagon coming to collect some materials that wasn't needed, and he had an IAB, which is like a crane on the back of a wagon, and he was picking it up, and he had a remote control for it. He had all his safety systems in place. His outrigger is on, his stabilizers out. He was on hard, solid ground, and he had his handrails everywhere. And he was stood on the back of his wagon, picking the stillages up and loading them on. And then he had to pick up some tubes, and he picked some tubes up. And these cranes are designed to work slowly. They won't just slew round really quick. They'll come round at a set speed. So if you see it coming, you can get out of its way, basically. It's a safety system. And this individual crushed his own leg because he was lifting these things on the back of his wagon. Now, when all that was going on, we got the tubes off his leg. He got took away in an ambulance. He hadn't broken his leg, but he badly damaged the muscle, and he had to have about 3 weeks off work. When all the investigation was going on, all anybody was interested in, when because I was getting grilled, was when was that crane last inspected, and has the driver done his daily inspections on his wagon, and has was the ground service correct, and did he have his outriggers out, and was he in a safe position? Nobody once asked me, how is he doing. They wanted to know all the tick sheets and the safety systems were all in
mhm.
place, and the wagon had the service and an MOT, and it was all up to date with everything. But nobody ever asked, what's his situation like? What's going on in his world? Why would an experienced operator make such a simple mistake by just not thinking? Because his mind was elsewhere. It turns out he had a lot of money problems and his mind was elsewhere. And he was thinking about that, and he lost track of where he was with it and ended up causing himself some damage. But I think there's definitely accidents that have happened on a construction site where somebody's in charge of big equipment and their mind can be elsewhere. and that could have caused the death to themselves or to somebody else. And I was actually working in Ireland last summer, and we'd finished on the sites that we were working on, and we were in Southern Ireland. We were near Cork, and it was a bit too early to go drinking Guinness at that point. So we thought we best fill it by doing something else. So we went to a museum, and one of the women that was working in the museum seen what we had written on our shirts, and seen the brightly coloured van that we've got outside. And she went on to say that in that part of Ireland, in this little village near Cork, they had a big spate of car accidents. And the people that were in the car accidents were men between the age of 20 to 45. There was nothing wrong with the car. The road conditions were good. There was nobody else involved. Everything was perfect, and the accident shouldn't have happened. But these individuals have ended up losing their life because of the car accident. And she was saying, I think it's because either they were distracted by something else going on in their life, or they used it as an excuse to take their own life. And I think that plays a factor in this industry as well. When people have industrial accidents that in reality really shouldn't have happened because of all the safety systems that are in place, and safe systems of work, and risk assessments and method statements and everything else that we have to go through to do any task out on a construction site now, and these individuals are still dying through accidents out on site. And I think a big part of that is because the mind might be elsewhere, or they're using it as an excuse to because suicide is such a taboo subject. People don't want to talk about it, or don't want to be known to have taken their own life.
Yeah, and it's like it's just that it's that distraction where, because luckily, that seems the more dangerous the job site is, or the bigger the risk. There are all that red tape and those safety things involved, but and if you do the after your investigation with what they do, they can really see, okay, well, here it is. This is what went wrong, because most of those safety incidents, there are freak accidents, but most of them are preventable. But it's usually user error. It's usually because we were distracted or lapse in judgment. This will just take me a second, right? I'll just go do this improperly, and it just comes down to that, and we're not. Yeah, it's the same here. We're not taking that into a factor. It's not part of the investigation. He was just distracted. Okay, why was he distracted? What's going on with this person, and why does this person feel like they don't have this space in order to handle what's distracting them potentially, or the education? I think you've said multiple times, I didn't know I had a problem. I didn't know I had this. I didn't know I was not. I was keeping it to myself, and so just so that's big. So I'm glad you brought that up, because along with that, where, and going back just a little bit, where you talked about, luckily you worked for a good company that saw the value in getting you help, getting you the resources, and then you spoke to your crew, you spoke to your team, like, hey, this is what's going on with me, which was really brave and by itself. But I'm assuming in your position, you felt the need to give some explanation to your guys and then and then going back to what you were saying, they were coming up to you, and you were saying, oh, I'm not alone in this. And I don't want to tell the story for you, but is that what got you thinking about being able to speak up more elsewhere about this, not just with your crew or your company? Is that kind of what triggered, what got you to want to speak up?
I think I went back and did my job for a few more years, financial responsibility and things like that. But it did give me time to think about it, because I thought there's got to be a better way of doing this. There's got to be a better way of getting this message out there. And I was working on in Liverpool again on the Yoko Ono building that got built for the university, and one day, as typical British weather, it was raining really hard, and all the bricklayers had gone home, and I was just sat in my office catching up with a bit of work. And that's when I was like, there's got to be a better way of doing this. And I thought, why don't I start a podcast about mental health in construction? Because my biggest problem was I wasn't talking about what I was going through and what was happening in my life. And I didn't know about it. I hadn't heard about any of this stuff that I was feeling, what was going on. And we used to have big posters around sites in the canteen areas and in the locker rooms and things like that we have on site. But at my lowest point, I never wanted to stand in a canteen full of my peers and everybody I was working with, looking at a poster about mental health in construction, which they absolutely need to be there and they absolutely play a part. But I never wanted to stand and look at it because I thought there could have been 500 people in that canteen and there's 500 pairs of eyes looking at me. And they're looking at Rob, looking at this poster about mental health in construction. And he's meant to be in charge of me, and he's meant to be putting me to work, and he's meant to be making sure I can earn my money. He's meant to be making sure I go home safe to my family, and he can't even look after his own emotions. I don't want to work for him. And again, I know that's all, it's not like that, but these were the thoughts that were going through my head, or the way I was thinking about things. And when I was on that job in this other job in Liverpool, and it was raining, I sat in my office, and I just had it was quite literally a light bulb moment, because I had no ambitions beforehand to set up a podcast or anything like that. But I thought, right, I'm going to set this podcast up about mental health in construction because my biggest problem wasn't I wasn't talking. I didn't know anything about this stuff. I hadn't heard anybody talking about this stuff. And I could deliver this message to people, and they could be in those canteens, or they could be in the work vehicle getting to and from work, or they could be sat on the bus, or however they get themselves to and from work, or they could be sat in the house in an evening, and they could be listening to a story of somebody who's within the industry talking about what's going on in their life and how they handled it. And that person on the other end could be listening, going, "That's me, and I feel like that, and I didn't know this existed, and I didn't know that happened, and I didn't know we could do all this sort of stuff." And that idea sort of grew, and this was like 2020 when I started this up, and then COVID happened and everything like that. But I started it, and it just sort of grew from there. I never set out with ambitions to stand in front of people and deliver talks and things like that. But I put the first episode out in November 20, and I haven't done that many episodes the past 2 years. I've had a lot going on in my personal life. I've had a separation and things like that, because I did get back with the kid's mum for a few years, but we're separated again now, so I've had to deal with all that side of things and working through all that. But it's growing and growing and growing, and now over the past 4 years, I probably spoke to probably 50,000 construction workers all over the UK, Ireland, Wales, Scotland, England, every corner of the UK. Delivering these talks just to try to break down those barriers and let people know that you can talk about it and there is help out there. And just because you ask for this help doesn't mean that you're any less of a person or you're any weaker. If anything, it's a strength. And I think I flipped that mindset on the ego, going back to ego, that I thought about it. I thought that if I'm in charge of all these people and I'm running these teams of people out on a construction site, they look at me as their leader. And if they're looking at me as their leader, and I can stand there and say to them, "Look, I'm struggling today. This is how I'm feeling. This is what's going on in my life," but still do my job and still deliver these big projects that I used to work on. Is that not a sign of strength? And it just keeps building and building and building. Before you know it, I'm sat in my living room in Macclesfield, which is in the northwest of England, speaking to two guys from America, and it's just crazy.
Yeah.
But it gets to that point,
Well,
and that's what I do.
talked to over 50,000 construction workers. That's incredible. I'm most curious about maybe the first couple talks you did, because I'm sure now it's a very, it's your people know what's going on. They kind of know the drill. They see the your logo there, and they know what you're about, and they know what's coming when they know that this talk's about to happen. But I'm curious to hear about those first few talks, and did you meet any resistance, and how were the
Oh, yeah.
first couple talks? How'd those go?
I think I was used to talking to people, and I've got a mindset of that. I don't let like nerves get the better of me. I don't try and overthink it. I just do it. And because I was just telling my story, and like my story evolved, the talk that I do has evolved over time because things are happening in my life and life's evolving. And it was nerve wracking, and we still get the same attitude now. We'll turn up to site and we're like, no, I'm not interested. I don't want to do it. And I can be cheeky with it, and I know what to say. I know the audience. I know how to deal with them. I can give them a bit of shit basically, and make them think about something, and I'll get them to stay. And we do the talk, and I say, look, I'm not forcing you to be here. You don't have to be here, but you never know. You might hear something that might ring a bit true with you, and let you know that there is help and support out there. I don't think I've ever had anybody walk out the talk. Nobody's got up and left. I did one in central London on Fleet Street, which is right in the centre of the city, because there's London and then there's the city of London, and it's right in the middle there. And I turned up to this project, and it was a mess. Like the hoarding round the construction site was shabby and broken and not looking neat and tidy. The scaffolding that was up protecting the building, they have a fireproof wrap on it called Monoflex, and it's just basically plastic that goes round it that protects it from the wind, the weather, and fire. And that was all cut and ripped and looked untidy. And the person who met me who's the site contact, she came out to me and she went, "Hi Rob, I'm really sorry. Everybody on site is scaffolders and ground workers." I went, "That's all right. They can still get help too. Just because they drive just because they're a scaffolder and just because they drive a machine doesn't mean that they can't get any help too." And I walked on site, and I think the people that were running that project, there was nobody under the age of 65, which is great for experience.
Yeah.
But when the demographic of everybody that's doing the work, the physical work that wasn't in management, was these scaffolders and ground workers who've got a reputation of being difficult people to deal with, they're all loud, rough, ready lads that everybody you work with. Do you know what I mean? It's all that sort of stuff. And they came in and they spoke to us, went, "Right, Rob, we're going to do it in the canteen and we're going to do it here, and I can't get many people to turn up to it." I was like, "Right, that's fine. Just get whoever you can get in there." When I do these talks, I give like a trigger warning to say, look, I am going to talk about my experience in this industry, and it might remind you of a time that you've been through or you're going through, or you know somebody who's gone through something. So just be warned of it. And within the first 10 minutes of doing my talk, I just triggered the whole room, and they all started going for me. They were all full on going for me. There was about 50 people just screaming, shouting, swearing at me, all sorts of stuff. And I looked at this site team who was like the management on this site, and I looked at them and said, "Are you going to deal with this, or am I going to have to deal with this?" And they were just like pulling back in the chair. They didn't know what to do. They clearly had no control on that site. And I just laid into them, like full ball laid into all these people that are on this site. And I didn't say it as nice as this, by the way, but I said that, look, if you don't want to sit here and listen to me deliver this talk, there's the door. You can use it. Now, either you sit and listen or you get out. Nobody left. Not a single person left. It's prison rules, isn't it? They're just trying to push and see if they can push. And if they think some guy's turning up to talk about mental health in construction, we're going to walk all over him. But at the end of the day, I'm just one of them.
Yeah.
And I've dealt with, and I was saying to him, I was like, I've dealt with bigger and badder people, and I'm still stood here to tell the story. And I shut up or get out. And they were sat there and they listened to it. And it turns out that one of the team members had hung themselves. They'd taken their own life about 3 weeks before. And I'm like, there you are. That's why I'm here delivering this talk. That's why I'm here trying to help people so we don't get to that point. So yeah, the first few talks were nerve-wracking a little bit, but I think because of my old job and having to do talks for people anyway, like delivering safety talks and all that sort of stuff, I was quite used to it. We did get a bit of resistance, and we still do get a bit of resistance, but that's just the industry's attitude. Whereas what we do find as well when we're doing these talks, when we do get difficult people, a lot of people in the crowd will deal with it, and they'll tell them to shut up, and they'll or whatever they might say. It might John, shut up and listen to it, or whatever the name is, and they'll deal with it because they're getting a benefit out of this talk, and they're realizing that I felt like that, and I want to hear this, and that's why we do it.
Nice. Has it I mean, you've been doing so how long have you been doing this for? I know you said you started in 2020. As far as actually going out and doing talks on job sites and to crews, how long has that been going on for?
Since 2021, so come January, it'll be 4 years.
Okay. Hopefully, has it all just been smooth sailing, or has there ever been a time or a spot where you didn't know if you needed to pack it up or keep going?
Oh yeah, June time this year, I had to take 2 months off. I was burning out again. But I'm recognizing the signs in myself, and I took time out, and I needed time away from it. And I'll be honest with you, Chris, when I get home on a Friday, I'm all mental health out, and I don't want to talk about it, and I don't
Yeah.
because I'm sick to the back teeth about it. And people are really shocked and surprised when, like, I go to shows, trade shows, and things like that, and they're like, "Oh, I bet everything's mental health." I'm like, no, it does my head in at times. Like, I'm sick of it, and like, I'm sure there's a points in your working week where you can't stand plumbing, where you've had enough
Oh
of
yeah.
it and you don't want to do it. Yeah, and I'm exactly the same with the mental health side of things. But no, I know and I understand now that I need to take time out and I need to take a bit of time away from it. I want to do stop and have a holiday, or like took 2 months away from it. I've come back refreshed and I work a lot better and more efficient and more creative. I've got more stuff to talk about. And like, I use that in my talk as well. Like I say to people, people think I've got all my shit together. I have not got all my shit together. I had to take 2 months off because stuff was going on and I couldn't deal with it, and it was getting too much for me. And I understand that now, and my body will tell me that. Like, um, I don't get ill often, but when, like, back in June, I was starting to be ill all the time, and it's my body screaming at me saying, "Slow down, you need to stop." And it'll definitely let you know that as well. And people ignore all those signs as well. Because when I was younger, for years, I thought I had a bad knee. I didn't. There was nothing wrong with my knee. I had scans on it. I've been to doctors. I've been to specialists. I've been to consultants. Everybody said there's nothing wrong with your knee. But it was my body's way of screaming at me to say, you need to slow down. You need to stop. Something's not right here. But again, I've got the knowledge now, but I didn't have it at that time.
Hmm. Yeah, it's just funny that it's just funny hearing I 100% get it, and I get where you're coming from. It's just funny hearing yeah, I got to take a break from mental health, right? That's
Yeah,
it's
absolutely. Yeah.
and it's you have the exact opposite problem of everybody else. Um,
Yeah.
so with these, no, that's good. It's good to hear that even with doing what you're doing, and it's a passion project that you're doing, and you're getting to do it. Is that you're doing this full time now, right?
Yeah. Full time, it pays my bills now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. And even with that, even you still need to take a break, and it's still important to recognize that
Yeah.
with this work that you've been doing. I'm just curious if there are any besides like that moment where you said in one of the earlier talks where you found out as the crowd finally calmed down that someone had taken their own life, and you okay, yeah, this is okay, this is why I'm here, and people are starting to open up. Just wondering if I just want to hear about some success stories,
Yeah, absolutely. I've got loads of success stories. There's people when we go and do these talks, they have what's called active rescues. And because our talks are backed by a charity that supports the industry, so it's the Lighthouse Construction Industry Charity, they deliver all the support services. So that could be anything from a counselling session to paying for somebody's funeral to buying a food shop to whatever it might be, and everything else in between. They're a big service. Last year we spent over £5.5 million supporting the construction industry. And we have these things called active rescues. And like at the end of the talks, we always get people come up and chat to us afterwards. And sometimes they'll let us know what's going on in their life, and we'll say to them, look, if you need the support, the phone number's there, get in contact with them. But there's other individuals that'll come up and speak to us, and you know that they're not going to ring that number. But what I say to them is, look, I can refer you into the charity, and I can get one of the teams to give you a call. And we get quite a lot of them. But these active rescues are where either myself or one of the other team members, because there's 12 of us in the team now, know that this individual's in crisis and they need like help now. And last year we had 87 people that was classed as an active rescue, which we could turn around and say that those 87 people are alive today because of the work that this charity does, and they would have taken their own life. And it's an amazing, and there's probably way more off the back of the talks that we don't know about, because they'll just ring the helpline. But also, when they go into the charity, because it is private and confidential, we don't get to hear anything about those individuals because it's their journey with the charity. And sometimes I'll get a message through social media where I had an individual message me saying, I've seen one of your talks, Rob. This was about 3 years ago. I've seen one of your talks and I think I need some help. So he went into the charity, and then he sent me a message about 2 weeks later saying, I'm just about to have my first counselling session with a therapist. I'm a bit apprehensive, but I'll let you know how I'll go on. And he messaged me back about a week later, actually, and he said, I've just had my second one and I forgot to message you, but I actually feel like it's good and it's working for me. Then he sent me another message about 6 weeks later saying, I've just finished my last session of counselling and it's absolutely changed my life. And it's given me a whole new perspective on life and the way I handle situations. I just want to thank you, and it's amazing. And when you get messages like that, it does make all your hairs on your arms stand up and things like that. And I've had it where we've been and delivered talks, and because we've been all over the country, you inevitably bump into people that you've met already. And we've had it several times where people have come up to us and go, I heard your talk, or I heard one of the other lads talk, and I rang the number and I've got the help, and they changed my life, and they put me, they allowed me to do this or do that, or they supported me with whatever it might have been, their support that they got. I was actually in a hospital in London this year that was being built, and one of the senior managers within, he was a European director, so he wasn't just the director for the UK, he was a director for Europe. He came up to me and went, off the back of your talks, you paid for my Christmas last year. And no, 2 years ago. And he said, I just got myself in a financial difficulty where I had to choose where I was either going to feed my children or buy them Christmas presents, and you allowed me to do both. Well, not me personally, but the charity allowed them to do both. He said, you paid for my Christmas. And he said, I've got myself back on my feet, and he said, I've give them the money back, which the charity will never ask him for the money back off people, no matter what your circumstances are. But he got himself back in a position where he's financially on his feet again, and he could give back to the charity. And he's done that. But when we get stuff like that, and even when we do the talks, it can be simple things where I was in Glasgow. So this was construction sites in Glasgow can be difficult, especially when it's English lads coming up, because England and Scotland, the Scottish hate the English. Everybody hates the English, by the way. Everybody hates the English. So when they've got a couple of English lads turning up to these sites, and these Glaswegian guys were there, and they were being difficult, and I stepped in and just got to listen. And when we were leaving, two of them chased us down in their van. Because they have like a one-way system to get out, because it was a big site. And they drove up the one-way system to stop us. And I thought, oh my God, are these going to come and kick off with us here? Anyway, they came over to us and went, lads, we just wanted to tell you that I really, really, really needed to hear that talk today. I was thinking of doing stuff, and now I know that there's help out there, so I'm I'm going to look at it a bit differently.
Wow.
And I stood and spoke to him for about 20 minutes afterwards. And that was just off the back of hearing the talks. And it still blows me away now, like 4 years later, whatever it is, or 4 years later, that the impact, not only myself, because I'm just one part of it, there's all the other people that, one, deliver the talks and two, deliver the services, that the impact it has on them and how they feel, or they totally change their mind. The most weathered, ancient construction worker that's worked in it since 1960 odd, that you just shut up, wipe your mouth, build a bridge and get on with it, son, type of person, will sit and listen to you and go, you know what, actually that was all right. And that's what it's all about. And I think that's why the talks are so successful, because we're just people from the industry, and we've been the bricklayer, or we've been the manager, or we've been the plumber, or we've been the electrician, or we've been the machine operator, or we've been, throughout the team we've been those individuals, and we're just people that from the industry will stand and talk about it.
Yeah, and that's what we. Yeah, this all came about because we just wish that this existed over here, and
Yeah.
it's starting to be talked about a little bit more. And there's some different, charities or nonprofits and other organizations, but it's so anytime these messages get delivered, it just feels so corporate and it feels
Yeah.
so outside of the industry looking in, and there's no one it really needs to be an inside out thing. And so that's where
Yeah.
that's a role we feel like we want to fill desperately, and we've only really gone and done one real speaking event so far, and it was at one of my former trade school that I went and did plumbing school at, and they invited us out there and spoke to a bunch of the first years, and it was a little bit rough. You came, one of the first times, because I relate to what you said, where I feel comfortable going and talking just to the guys, right? Because like you, I've ran teams, I've laid everyone out for the day, I've done the safety talks, I feel comfortable talking to them, but still getting used to talking in front of an audience, especially where I don't know these people. And we delivered our talk and talked about the industry, talked about the book that I wrote, The War for Men, that we put together, and even after we delivered it and then came away from it and let the teacher kind of give his closing remarks. Oh, that was kind of rough, just kind of being a little rough on ourselves, right? It still opened up so many opportunity, and a lot of people came up to us after and talked and said, thank you for this, or they looked at us as people to ask questions to, and it was just it was giving people that opportunity, where I think we all, like you said, all of us want something. We all have these issues at one time or another in our industry and in our lives, but it's giving people that opportunity, because you're not just go out and then delivering talks, but then staying after and giving people the opportunity to come up and chat with you and talk to you. And that's it. That's the phrasing we've used quite a bit, is we construction workers or men in general, we just need that opportunity.
Yeah.
And that discovery of knowing that there actually is help out there, or knowing that someone's willing to listen to me at least.
Yeah, you've only got to look at Tony Soprano, haven't you? He
Yeah, there you
had to go and sit and speak to a therapist every week or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually recently rewatched that, and rewatching that now and watching Tony's journey with the therapist, with my outlook on the way things do now, I can absolutely see my old. Obviously, I didn't take it to the extreme. I was nothing like Tony Soprano.
You weren't a mob boss, yeah.
I wasn't a mob boss, but I could see the toxic mentality that he had, and outlook on things, and the way he reacted and dealt with situations like that. And you can see that. And I think when you do go and deliver these talks and do this work and work in this space, we're giving people permission to talk about it. They don't need that permission, but they don't realise that. And because you stand there and you are so vulnerable, and like I've stopped talks where they're like, "You're not a bricklayer." So I'm like, stopping this talk, and I went and laid bricks with them. Went, all right, come on then.
Oh, that's awesome.
If you want to give it like that, and I went and did that, and they were like, all right. You just, and it's knowing your audience, and because you work in the industry, you know what to say to them and you know how to handle them, and because they see you're not just somebody who's one. We all need to make money, right? But you're not out there to rip people off, because there's people out there that are seeing that mental health is becoming a buzzword, and it's a new thing to do, and people are out there trying to. I don't know. I think their intentions aren't as true as they say they're going to be.
Sure.
And people, I think if you construction workers in the UK, and I'm sure it's the same in the US, if you go up there with the wrong intentions, they'll sniff it out and they'll just turn you inside out. And you can't do that. Whereas if it is people from the industry and you're delivering it in a certain way, and you do get people like those individuals that were kicking off with me on that site in London, the ones that are the noisiest and the ones that kick off the most, it's because you're triggering something inside them and you're reminding them of their own selves, and they don't know how to handle it. So they'll turn it into anger because they know what anger is and they know how to deal with anger. So I'm going to scream and shout because I know how to deal with that emotion. Instead of trying to deal with where they're sat there thinking, oh my God, he's describing my life, which I had somebody say that to me yesterday. I mean, you've just described my life. How have you got yourself out of it? And there's, when you do get these people that do react in certain ways, it's probably because it's them that need the help the most, and it's just deflection, and they don't want anybody else in that room because they'll feel like he's talking directly at me and everybody's looking at me in this room.
Mm-hmm.
Like me with that poster situation, nobody would be looking at them and nobody'd realise that they're squirming. Like 2 weeks ago, I cried on my talk, stood in front of a room full of construction workers, and I cried. And when I started crying, you should have seen everybody, all the men in the room were squirming. They didn't know how to look at another man crying. They didn't know how to handle it. And like Ray, who was working with, was like, do you need me to take over? Like, no, they can stand and watch me cry. Because as they can see, it's just an emotion that'll pass. And it did. It passed while I was doing that. Because I was talking about my mum died 3 years ago, and I had to stay outside in a hotel opposite the hospital where she died. And I said to everybody, these are the emotions that I'm feeling today because of this. And I went on to explain why. And at the end of it, somebody came up and went, I felt like that. And I was like, exactly. That's why I do it, and that's why I do these talks, stuff like that. So yeah, I'm at the point with it now where I'll cry my eyes out in front of people. I'm not bothered, and even if they take the piss out of me, I'm not bothered. Do you know what I mean? I've grown up on construction sites with ginger hair. I've got skin like a rhino.
There you go. No, it's great though. It's good that then they can see in real time, like you said, it's just an emotion that'll pass, and then it passes during the talk. And because,
yeah.
like I said, anger is one that, as men and just being our construction workers in general, men and women, anger is an acceptable emotion that we can have and portray. Right. So I have written down, I wanted to talk about UK construction culture and US construction culture. It sounds like it's just the same. That sounds, just by nature of what we do and the hours we work and the conditions we have to work in, and then the people that choose to do it, and the people that are still in it, and that the behaviors of the old, the older mentalities are still trickling down to the younger guys and the apprentices. And it's no, it's just, that was one of the things I wanted to talk about was, I mean, maybe some of the differences, but the more you talk, it sounds like you've been on the same sites that I have.
Yeah, it's all the same. It's just male culture.
Yeah.
And it's just the way men in society, whether it's in the UK or whether it's in the US or whether it's in Australia or whether it's in Germany, they're all the same, and they deal with things in the way that they deal with it, and or not deal with it sometimes. Whereas if we can break those barriers down and be open and honest and have these conversations, then hopefully it leads to a culture change and those older ways of thinking. And don't get me wrong, Chris, there is times in your life where you're on a project and you need to grit your teeth, get on with it, and buckle down and get it done and have that determination and have that resilience to do it. Absolutely, you need to do that. But you got to know and understand how to look after yourself, so when it does get tough, you can push through and you can get the projects over the line.
Yeah, like I said, there's the time and the place for all of it. There'd be days, one of the ones like when we'd be lifting big pipe or big mechanical equipment, we'd have our crane days, right? And I'd set
Yeah,
expectations in the very beginning of the morning. Just hey, everyone, when the load is off the ground, we're gonna be short. We're gonna be quick. We're gonna be mean. We're gonna be rude because
yeah,
if there's a safety concern, I have to yell it at you. I don't have time to be, hey, you're in a pinch point. Hey, you gotta move. Hey, no, we got
yeah,
you
exactly.
you don't have time for that. You have to be very blunt. It's immediate. Those signals or those calls and everyone, it's so and you understand that. But there's definitely those times for that, and there's things as men that we do really really well. Because look at you take a step back and look at what we're building with our hands and with each
Yeah,
other, and
yeah,
it's incredible. So much of that male culture is very very good and very very productive, and it can also be detrimental to the individual and to ourselves. And I want to say not but, because we can still do the things we need to do and learn how to express our other emotions so that they can
yeah.
pass, so that they don't get bottled up and turn into something else later.
I think the biggest thing I've learned on this journey that I've been on is patience. Um, in fact, I had a therapy session a couple of weeks ago, and the therapist said, "How have you got yourself through this time? What have you found has helped you the most?" And I've said, quite literally, time, because this time shall pass too. I don't know who came up with that originally, but it is a very true statement that no matter how stressed you're feeling, no matter how bad life is, and no matter how much you feel like the weight of the world's on you, the time will pass and you will get through that situation. It's just knowing when you can turn around to whoever you feel safe turning around to and saying, "I'm feeling like this. I don't understand what's going on in my life. I think I need a bit of help." And I learned that a lot, and I learned to set boundaries as well. Boundaries was a big thing for me, and everybody's boundaries are totally different as well. And that's the same with mental health. We could be doing the same job and under the same workload, but you might react differently to I react to it, and vice versa, and everything like that. But boundaries are a big thing, and learning to say no in a positive way. Because, like you said it before, like you were saying, when you now start working for yourself and you're doing everything, and you're up long hours and you're on site, and then you've got to do the admin work and the office side of things and everything like that, and then you're missing out on other things, and then you'll think, your family might say to you, "Chris, I need you to come, and we've got this family time. We've got to go to a restaurant, or we've got to do whatever." And you'll think, "I haven't got time to do it. I'm really busy. I've got to get this price in, and I've got to write this schedule, and I've got to do
Yep.
this. I haven't got time for that." But you might get a phone call and somebody go, "Chris, I've got 1,000 meters of plumbing that needs doing, there's pipe work that needs doing." You'd find time to make that work, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
And
that's very true.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's understanding and knowing what you need and setting that boundary. And instead of, because I think when you have that self-employed mentality, you think, "I can't turn work away," but you can also overload yourself with work. And setting a boundary for yourself is, it can be that I could ring you up and say, "Chris, I've got this apartment block that needs a total rip out and replumb, and it's 57 units, and we want new bathrooms in every single one, and we want everything like this doing. It's 6 months work, and everything like that." And you think, "Oh, that sounds amazing," um, but you might have already have loads of work
Oh,
in
yes,
already in that
exactly.
time period that I need you to do it in. Now, if you turn around to me and go, "Yeah, Rob, no problem. Here's my price. This is what, and we can fit it and we can do it straight away," you'll probably get off the phone, or as you enter that email, you think, "How the hell am I going to do this? Because I've already got this doing. I've got this on. I've got this on. I've got this on. I've got this on." So your stress level's gone through the roof. My expectation on the other end of, "Oh, Chris said he can do this. Great. He's going to turn up on Monday and he's going to crack on with this." Monday comes round and you don't turn up because you can't make it, because you're busy with all the other commitments you've already done. "I'll be there tomorrow. I'll be there tomorrow. I'll be there tomorrow. I'm really sorry." Then your reputation starts to drop. And I'll think, "I'm not going to use Chris because he keeps letting me down." And then I end up getting somebody else to do the work. And I'll say to you, "Chris, you're not doing it for me because you're not turned up. You've let me down on this." And I finish these apartment blocks. I get somebody to do it. And then somebody else comes along, a friend, a colleague that's doing a similar sort of build, and say, "Do you know any M&E contractors that can come in and rip this out and fit all the plumbing in for me and everything like that?" And I go, "Oh, I use this guy." And he goes, "Well, I've heard of this Chris." And I'm like, "Nah, don't use him because he promised me this and delivered to this." And if you set a boundary for yourself, you could say, "Rob, I really appreciate the phone call and I really appreciate the business, but at this moment in time, I don't have the capacity to do it. But I do have the capacity to do it in this time schedule." And I can come back to you and go, "I'm really sorry, Chris, that doesn't work for me." And I know the conversation won't be as polite as this, but that time scale doesn't work for me. Do you have any recommendations? You might send a couple of other people off, and they go off and they do the job. And then I could be having this meeting again with that friend who said to me, "Oh, I've been given this Chris's details. Is he any good?" I said, "I've never personally used him, but what he did say to me is he said he couldn't do it this time. He was upfront with me and he was honest and he set my expectations and understood what I needed." And I've learned all that, and it all came from setting a boundary to say, "I'd love to do the work, but I don't have the capacity at the minute." And I think I've learned to do that in my personal life as well. Absolutely, I'd love to get all this stuff sorted for you, but I've got a family dinner to go to, or my kids are at school, or whatever else it is.
Yeah, well, I feel like this guy's been watching me because everything you just described is as a business that business owner. That's all those scenarios have played out.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take that as my personal advice because we always, at the end of these podcasts, and I so appreciate you coming on, we like to end with a little bit of man advice. You know, not necessarily just construct, but, and you've given, not that you haven't given us much to work with, but, and again, the setting the boundaries, I'll take that one for myself, but for anyone else listening, just a bit of man advice for us before we let you go.
A bit of man advice is money comes and goes, memories last forever. So make those memories and prioritize that.
That was beautiful.
I love it. Oh, thank you so much, everybody. Robert Muldoon. Thank you so much. Thank you for the work that you're doing over there. It really is. In the beginning, I said, you know, you're living our dream. You're doing what we want to do, but it's really true. This is something that is so near and dear to our hearts, and something that we appreciate you. We learn so much from you and from all the, you know, watching the things that you're doing, and we're going to try to do the same over here. And I'm sure we'll be talking many more times after this.
Yeah, definitely. No, thank you for having us on. I've really enjoyed it, and any advice I can help you and guide you as much as I can. And if you ever make it to the UK, you'll have to come out and do these talks with us.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna get this started over here, and we'll get all practiced up for you.
So, Rob, just for our community, what is your website?
Oh yeah,
and your company.
If you search MYH podcast, it'll pop up, whether it's on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, any of the social medias, it'll come up. I did lock myself out of the original Facebook page, so there's 2 Facebook pages. but if you search MYH podcast, it'll come up. It does stand for Mind Your Head Podcast, but I had to rename it because there's a charity called Mind Your Head, and they absolutely went for me and tried to shut me down. So not every charity is what make out who they are. But yeah, just search MYH podcast.
Perfect.
Yeah, we'll put some links in our videos as well, and then we'll get you this as well. But if you haven't already, please subscribe and like and share the War for Men podcast so that we can keep getting the word out on this side of the pond, right? Is that what we say?
Yeah, absolutely.
And thank you so much, Rob. Thank you so much for listening to the War for Men podcast.